Welcome to Mainland Television Regional News. I'm Graham O'Brien, and coming up in today's bulletin, Motueka gunmen on the loose, Labour leadership roadshow in town, Nelson Arts Festival a near sellout, leading economist talks up recession, tea breaks axed, a man allegedly presented a firearm to a group of people in Thorpe's Bush in Motueka on Tuesday afternoon around 12:30 p.m, sparking an armed offenders response, causing schools to be shut down and police to search the town. When Mainland caught up with the police in Motueka, they had centred their search in and around the Coppin Place near High Street, where the offender's vehicle was located, and it is believed the man was living. The offender was known to the police, and although he produced a firearm, no shots had been fired before the gunman drove off in a vehicle. Motueka High School was put into lockdown, as were other neighbouring schools, until the police were certain that the offender was not posing a threat to students. Residents of Coppin Place said they knew the offender as Jada, and while police were searching the houses in that area, they had been evacuated to the street corner. The man's vehicle had been located parked in the Coppins Place cul-de-sac, where police continued on with their search in flats nearby. A car transporter arrived and they loaded the man's worse-for-wear BMW getaway car onto it and took it away. Police had assistance from officers outside of Motueka, and it is expected that there would be a heavy police presence in Motueka until the man was found. The suspect is still at large and has been named as Jada Bryce Kennard, aged 27, of Motueka. Kennard is a Māori, about 179 centimetres tall, of medium build. He is considered dangerous and should not be approached. At present, more than a dozen police, including the Armed Offenders Squad and CIB, are working to locate Kennard. Police have recovered a firearm believed to belong to Kennard. A number of calls with information have been received from the public. Overnight, however, Kennard has not yet been located. Police ask anyone who has seen Kennard or has information as to his whereabouts to call 111 immediately. Thorpe's Bush in Motueka has gained a reputation for being a haven for drug deals, spent needles and nefarious dealings. Tasman Youth Council have noted the park as being an uncomfortable place for youth to go and have been conducting a public survey over past weeks on how Thorpe's Bush could become an improved environment for public use. There was a good turnout at Mainland School Hall this week for the Labour's leadership election hustings, with the four candidates, David Parker, Andrew Little, Nanaya Mahuta, Grant Robinson, conveying their visions for a renewed and invigorated Labour to the party faithful.
We must be there for the tied contractors, the couriers, the service technicians, the cleaners, the IT contractors who aren't employees, they're now tied contractors. We must be there for the unpaid interns, these people who are slaving away on no pay just to get an interview. We must be there for the people with 0-hour contracts who have uncertainty of hours from day to day and uncertainty of income from week to week. We must meet the challenges of the declining demand for labour caused by technology. How do we fairly share work and income? These truly are the labour issues of our time. Now, to meet these needs, we're also going to have to tackle the economic challenges that we face nationally, to lift productivity, to increase exports, to invest in modern jobs. Currently, our system is rigged. And it's rigged to drive speculation rather than investment in jobs. We reward speculation and we punish work. Every dollar of wages is taxed, but not capital income. Medium income earners pay higher rates of tax on their overall income than the wealthy, and that's just not fair. It's getting ever harder to get a home. Home ownership rates are the lowest in 60 years and still dropping. And now John Key's government is starting to flog off social housing. This current government is selling us short, and it's just not fair.
Fellow members and Labor Party members, the party needs to change. We need to make change. We've had 3 election losses in a row, and our party vote has continued to decline. More of the same is not acceptable. New Zealand's values are Labor's values. They are the values of supporting each other, of looking out for each other, of sticking together. Labor's values are the values of making sure that no one is left out and no one is left behind. But the sort of country that we are creating now is seeing more and more New Zealanders left out and left behind. You see it in our child poverty statistics. Nearly 250,000 children living in households that are below the poverty line. And many of them, not quite half, but many of them, with a working parent in those households. We see it in work. More and more New Zealanders reliant on part-time, low-paid, insecure work. That's the growing reality for many New Zealanders today. We are becoming a country where more New Zealanders are being left out and being left behind. And there's only one political party in our political system that takes those issues seriously and addresses those issues meaningfully, and that's the New Zealand Labour Party.
I'm intensely proud of the Labour Party and the Labour movement. We have been behind most of the progressive changes that have been made in New Zealand's history, be it social security or social housing or a nuclear-free New Zealand or establishing the Waitangi Tribunal. We should be proud of those achievements. They are what make me proud of the Labour Party. And when we look at today's New Zealand, those values that have got us there, of fairness, of opportunity, of looking out for each other, are under more threat than ever. Right now, today, in Wellington, the National Party legislates to take away the right to a basic meal and rest break for workers. Right now, in Wellington, John Key and his government are dismantling social housing, the very thing that gave John Key his start in life. That's what we're up against, so our values are needed more than ever today. But we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest that we've lost 3 elections in a row, and those values that I still believe are New Zealand's values and Labour values are no longer connecting with people's daily lives. We have to find the messages that take those values and put them into the lives of New Zealanders.
I'm putting my hand up because I believe Labour is a party of aspiration and opportunity, and what we represent every day and in our communities alongside people who work with us is that they can believe that Labour will deliver to their aspirations and their opportunities. But we've got work to do to connect what we stand for to the things that they believe in, to what will happen out in their communities, in our regions and in our provinces. It's a very important challenge, and I want to thank you for all the effort you put in at the election. We've had 4 hustings meetings, and throughout the whole of those meetings, the membership have been really trying to grapple with what is the nature of the challenge that we're dealing with. So the review that's taking place is an important one, because we all must participate in what it will take to turn this ship around, but also redefine what Labour stands for. In 2 years' time, we'll be celebrating our centenary. And that's a very important turning point for our party and for what we represent to future New Zealanders, because we need to be able to look around the room and say, we stand for a proud legacy and for a proud future.
I was able to catch a couple of the candidates afterwards for an interview on how they plan to unite the party and get the disillusioned back behind Labour.
Well, I think we need to unite around a common purpose, and I think that common purpose for Labour has to be getting back to giving more prominence, emphasising the needs of working New Zealanders. And I think that's the point of reconnection, because we've lost that connection with so many working New Zealanders. We were born of working men and women who saw the Labour Party as meeting their needs and aspirations, decent work, secure work, jobs you'd want to jump out and rush out to work, secure in the knowledge that your family were getting a good education and you had an affordable roof over their home, over their heads.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what everyone's looking for, aren't they? And some real solid leadership in that direction for the good of the people would be fantastic.
Well, I think that is the key. You know, I think people think that we've lost our connection with them because we've given too much emphasis to peripheral issues and not enough issues to those core issues of fair economic outcomes and prosperity for everyone.
Well, I think getting ourselves united is the first step. I don't think anything's done more damage to Labour in the last 6 years than the idea that we're not a united team. I think a lot of that's actually been driven by the media, and it's not actually the reality. But whatever, we have to be able to project to the public that we're one team. So the first way to do that is that we've got to bring everybody in the caucus together around the core things we believe in as a Labour Party. It's not about us as caucus members, it's about the people that we need to represent and getting back to the core values of the party around fairness, opportunity, looking after each other as a community. So I think once we get ourselves together around those core ideas, the caucus will unify. We have to. We have no other option. And in the caucus over the last 6 years, I think I've played a constructive role in working with all sorts of different people. I think I've got the skills to make sure our team works well together.
So that's fantastic. It'd be really good to see some really big numbers come out and some really solid leadership for the people to follow.
Yeah, and look, we've got to get back and reconnect with New Zealanders. I mean, the values of the Labour Party hold strong, but it's quite clear after 3 election losses that a number of people have lost their connection with us. We've got to get back out into communities, be at the grassroots, be part of the campaigns that are taking place on the ground, and have people believe in the Labour Party again, believe that we're on their side. And I think picking out the right issues, being consistent, being clear, being strong about what we believe, people will come back to us.
If you would like to hear the Labour leadership candidate speeches in full, then visit Mainland TV Nelson New Zealand's Facebook page for the complete video footage. We will also put up the link on our website at mainlandtv.nz. The 20th Nelson Arts Festival has finished, with over 47 sold-out performances from a total of 77 ticketed events after throngs of Nelsonians and visitors from across New Zealand attended this year's 12 jam-packed days of theatre, music, writers, talks, community events and art installations, school performances and workshops in venues across the region. This was the final Nelson Festival for organiser Sophie Kelly, who has seen the Nelson Arts Festival grow in popularity from last year, with festival ticket sales still being counted, but figures are tracking at around 11,400 sales, up from about 10,500 last year. The school program was one which was particularly well received this year, with an estimated 2,882 school children experiencing top quality music and theatre at an accessible price. Entries were also strong in the Stage 1 performances, with high demand from schools across the region keen to take part. Half of this year's Page and Blackmore readers and writers sessions were sold out, with a significant number of visitors attending from out of town. The Man Book Prize winner Eleanor Catton led the line-up, which included poet Harry Ricketts, Wonky Donkey author Craig Smith, Sarah Kate Lynch for A Girl's Lunch, and 2 of the popular Thinking Brunches, one on New Zealanders' sense of identity and the other on public broadcasting. Nelson Arts Festival director Sophie Kelly said she's thrilled her final program was well received. Having something in it for everyone, young and old, audiences were particularly thrilled with the world-class circus performers in Beyond and the talented crooners from the Modern Māori Quartet. The bookbinder in the quaint St. Peter's Church at Founders was another hit. Other successes were the free Nelson acts in the packed-out granary sessions and the festival buzz at Founders with a spectacular video installation Winds of Time on the windmill every night. Taking over the position of Festival Director on 10th of November is Axel D. Mopiu, who is currently the Community Services Team Leader at Palmerston North City Council. Tighten up your spending if you believe what a visiting leading economist had to say about New Zealand economy when in Nelson last week. Bank of New Zealand Head of Research, Stephen Toplis, has warned of a potential economic recession in New Zealand within the next 2 years, saying a natural slowdown in the economy could send the country into a recession around 2016-17. Speaking at New Zealand Aquaculture Conference in Nelson last week, he said the economy was the strongest it had been in a decade, but growth was forecast to slow. He said to those present that he wasn't trying to give a message that there's an impending disaster, but there does require a bit more caution. His warning was directed at business people in the aquaculture industry, but he did say an economic slump would ultimately affect all New Zealanders. The forecasted slump drivers would be a drop in the pace of growth in the Christchurch construction boom, the massive hit to dairy prices, a decline in net migration inflows, and an expected rise in interest rates. He said that there was nothing to be scared of and that businesses should be operating reasonably cautiously in that economic environment, and that accepting some severe headwinds over the next few years and adjusting to them could mean business can run quite happily. Toplis told his audience that the current economic environment was not that bad for the average New Zealander. There was strong employment growth, reasonable wage growth, low cost of debt, low interest rates, and stable house prices. The environment is likely to remain relatively benign for the household sector for some time to come. However, with lower rates of growth plus a bit of a crisis offshore somewhere or a drought in New Zealand, these are the sort of things that can mess things up and knock things over the edge. Smoko is considered essential for manual labourers, with substantial morning and afternoon teas being vital for farm workers and labouring people, keeping them energised during their working day and preventing accidents from happening due to overwork. How many of us have looked forward to what feels like a life-saving cuppa to get us through to lunch or the end of a hard physical working day? Now we have politicians who have never known or forgotten about hard manual labour, rewriting our laws to strip workers of their historic fight for legal entitlement to breaks and replace them with a general obligation for employers to, and I quote the new law, provide the worker with a reasonable opportunity for rest and refreshment and attending to personal matters, that is, appropriate for duration of the work period at the employer's reasonable discretion, unless otherwise negotiated. How many workers could realistically negotiate meal and tea breaks without concern for their jobs? We went to the streets to ask the people how they felt about this new law change that may be enacted upon us all today, which could be perceived to be a step back to the 1700s.
How do you feel about the law change taking away workers' rights to meal breaks?
I think it's disgusting. I think the workers have fought for years to get these settlements in place, and if they're going to just eat away in their working conditions, it's got to be looked at closely. Definitely not for it.
Well, I think everyone's entitled to a break, and when I started work many years ago, it was always an hour for lunch and a quarter of an hour for smoko, and I think everyone has a right to that.
Personally, I think that kind of sucks. People should have the right, to have, as it is or was, their 20-minute break in the morning to have their cup of tea and just to kind of chill out, and have their lunch break and have a break in the afternoon.
I'm not so sure they'll be taking the rights away from workers. I think there's an opportunity there for both the workers and employers to create a bit of flexibility in the workplace. I think provided the communication is there between employer and employee, the employee knows exactly where they stand and knows that they can speak out and ask questions, because ultimately we are human and we do need our breaks every now and again. We're not being asked to work from 8 till 5 non-stop. I think there's a great opportunity there for a flexible work environment for everyone, really.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.